Good afternoon. We're going live again. We're going live to talk about the highest standard, which actually means accreditation by the AEI Guild. And today we're going to focus on the highest standard for technical competency. So wherever you are, wherever you're joining us from, hello and welcome. And then please use the chat for any questions. Let's get started. So, the highest standard for technical competency. What I would like to talk to you about today is the accreditation by the AEI Guild, and also your opportunity to join the leaders working to the highest standard in AI. What does that mean, and why are we doing this? So, accreditation. Accreditation is the AI Guild action and process of recognizing a data professional as from her or his profession to the highest quality standard. The AI Guild has piloted the accreditation. We piloted it last year, and we worked out what actually it means to define the highest standard and what this might look like. Here you go. So the highest standard really comes in 4 components. One is around data proficiency or technical competency. The next one is about advancing AI adoption or the business impact. The third component is about your professional contribution, and the final one is about your personal capacity. What do we mean by this? So, technical competency, what we focus on today, really is about your broad technical competence in the product development cycle, the life cycle of the product. That is the foundation. And then there are other parts to this, why this is called the highest standard. So the next one is the business impact or advancing AI adoption. That you have a track record of contributing to products or projects that have made it into production and have had business impact, have had demonstrable, measurable business impact. The next one is the professional contribution. So this is a fast-moving field. Everybody's learning. Everybody's basically learning all the time. And the highest standard also means that you give back. You're mentoring, you're publishing, you are speaking at conferences. There is a way in which you are making a professional contribution that helps your peers also become better practitioners. And then the final one is the personal capacity. That actually means looking at judgment, looking at ethics, looking at regulation. That actually means your capacity to make decisions, the right kind of decisions, or to correct mistakes that mean not just a business success, but actually mean that the business success has a benefit to society, and in this sense isn't detrimental to society, or isn't illegal, or isn't at fault, or isn't broken. So this also matters. And all 4 together define the highest standard. So why are we doing this? We're doing this because we want to support practitioners in having data careers that are valuable to them and also satisfactory. We want to support businesses in ramping up teams and also ramping up use cases in production. And in this sense, get the analytics and the machine learning deployed and keep them deployed. And then push for the adoption of data and machine learning for the wider benefit of humanity. Now, we didn't just come up with this. It wasn't a matter of, so other way around. There's precedent. There are other people that have thought about this. There's a broad international movement behind this. It is absolutely necessary also in the context of handling the upcoming regulation in Europe and elsewhere around machine learning. So I have here a quote for you. That is, data is the hidden critical infrastructure of our world. We ought to be asking whether the people who are designing, building, and maintaining it are professionally qualified to do the job and how they can prove it. Okay, are professionally qualified to do the job and how they can prove it. So this is from the UK. This is from people that have looked at the situation in the UK, a number of royal societies and other professional societies that are also on the path to launching some form of accreditation or some form of chartered status, as you have it in the Anglo-Saxon world. And if you want to think of it in the broader context, think, for example, doctors, or think, for example, engineers. So if a doctor wants to practice her or his profession, they have to be recognized as a qualified professional to do so. If you're joining us from Germany today, for example, this is known as the Facharzt. So if you want to be in that profession, you need to prove that you're professionally qualified to do the job with the patient, with the customer. Think, on the other hand, about engineers. Think about civil engineers. Think about civil engineers that build bridges. And these bridges need to stay. They're not supposed to collapse. They need to be maintained. But principally speaking, when they're designed, they need to be designed in such a way that they last, and that depending on whether it's a traffic, do the job, and they do it over a very long time. So safety, for example, is critical to that. And again, engineers need to prove that they're qualified to do the job. So this is the inspiration behind this. It's been with professions for the last 150 years. That's how long we've had accreditations and chartered statuses for professionals. So it's been there all along. And then I have another quote here for you that kind of asks, would it be meaningful for data people to have something that you could call a that would be an analogy to the Hippocratic Oath. And I have a quote here for you. We need to have the ethical. We need to have that ethical understanding. We need that understanding, that training, and we need to have something akin to a Hippocratic Oath. So we need to ask professionals not just to prove it, but we also need to ask professionals to set a standard, and they need to be ready to be held accountable to that standard. And this, I think, is part of this process. So the AEI Guild piloted the accreditation last year. We have 12 accredited experts whose names you can see here. So we made a point of making sure that they were working across a number of industries. So, some are in the new digital economy, some are working in companies that have been around for a long time, some are actually in industry, in corporate industry, in large corporate players. There's also somebody who's working at a university. So accredited expert means that you are working to the highest standard in the profession, actually wherever you are. As a data analyst, machine learning expert, key AI expert, wherever you are, you're working to this highest standard. So we had a pilot with people from different industries. We all made sure that they came from different backgrounds. So in this case, this meant different nationalities or passports. And we also looked at the balance between men and women. And if you will count this through, you see that we had 5 women and 7 men that successfully went through the process. And being accredited by the AEI Guild wasn't a foregone conclusion. So there have been instances where people have not passed. So you need to apply, you need to prove it. Your peers will judge you, and your peers will judge you according to consistent standards. And if you meet them, you become accredited. And if you don't meet them, you would not become accredited. But of course, you could try later once you have improved on that. So I already alluded to the why, and the why is actually the need for quality assurance and trust in the data economy. A really easy way of thinking about this is that there is this anecdotal evidence that says that only 1 out of 10 data products or projects actually make it to production. Never mind how many actually stay there. So if this in another way means saying that most of it is stuck in the hell of the POC hell, the proof of concept hell, and there just isn't enough trust and or enough quality, and therefore also not enough business value, so that the stuff gets deployed more frequently and stays there. More broadly speaking, there is actually a worldwide demand for trustworthy AI. So the public doesn't have a super good understanding of data and machine learning, but what does reach them actually typically highlights the risks, and there is a public perception that is more apprehensive, if you so like. And then there are also numerous reports that keep highlighting the risks. And then there is, particularly in the European Union, the effort to regulate AI and to actually find out which AI is considered unacceptable and shouldn't be done at all, which one is high risk and needs special regulation, which one is kind of like lower risk and which is generally unproblematic. But behind it is actually, so how do we trust it? How do we trust the product? How do we certify the product? But also, how do we trust the people behind it actually to deliver to a certain standard that means it's also for the benefit of society and it's not doing harm in any obvious kind of way, and also not doing harm perhaps in an unintentional way, or if it becomes clear that the harm is unintentional, how do you fix it? So there is a worldwide demand for this, and at the moment, actually, there is a lack of quality assurance. Now, there's also a real downside for the data economy in this. Technology is perceived as risky, but particularly companies are kind of hesitant in investing, or companies are hesitant in actually embracing a data-driven culture. So just listened to something this morning again where there was this question, why don't companies have chief data officers? Or if they do have chief data officers, why are they not represented on the board? So there are real consequences in the business. There are real consequences for the professionals. There are real consequences in things not being resourced, not being staffed adequately, not going into production, the data professionals not really being influential, frustration perhaps even mounting when companies say they would like to be data-driven, but actually fail to or don't have the capacity to implement. So there are real tangible downsides to this lack of trust and lack of quality assurance. In comes the accreditation by the AEI Guild that is global, so it's a quality standard developed by an international community. It's individual, so it's about the individual practitioner and acknowledging your professional experience. It's experience-based, so it's not a matter of learning, it's a matter of your track record of what you've done, of being able to prove in a transparent and for peers credible kind of way that you have achieved this. And it's objective in the sense that it's a rigorous assessment that has clear criteria on whether you pass or fail. So let's go and have a look at this. The highest standard, just to remind you, or those that have come late, comes in 4 components. So the data proficiency or technical competency. Next, advancing AI adoption or the business impact. Then your professional contribution and also your personal capacity. For today, I'm just going to focus on the one part, which is the technical competency. The technical competency has been broken down into 3 components. So one is around the skills, the second is around the expertise, and the third one is around your portfolio. And think of it like this. So when we say skills, we mean that you have the technical expertise that makes you competent across the product lifecycle. Now, of course, you can't be a specialist in everything, right? But you're broadly competent across the product lifecycle. You technically get how this is done from start to finish, how you iterate, how continuous integration or continuous deployment would work, how to do the modeling, how to put a model into production, how data quality can be assured, what pipelines look like, and so on and so on. Of course, if you're a data engineer, you'll be a specialist for the pipelines. Of course, if you're a data scientist and doing the modeling, you're doing the modeling, or you're more in the ops department. Clear, you're a specialist, but you just generally have the technical competence across the product lifecycle, a certain breadth of skills. That means that comparing this again to an engineer building the bridge, the engineer actually does also understand the whole project of how to build a bridge, even if the engineer's particular capacity is looking at the suspension of the bridge. Yeah? So a particular aspect, but you need to understand the whole bridge, otherwise this isn't working. So the breadth. So you need to demonstrate that breadth of skills. That's exactly what it's about, and that you have spent a number of years working in the field and that you know how this works. So typically, this would mean that you have spent at least 4 years developing your breadth of skills. Otherwise, this wouldn't be meaningful. This also means that you can only apply for accreditation once you can show that you have been an active practitioner in startups, industry, in the professional field for at least 4 years. Up next, the expertise. So what does that mean? It means that you hold deep domain expertise. I just alluded to this when I said, a civil engineer building a bridge may actually be specializing on the suspension of the bridge, right? Here's the same. You will be a computer vision engineer, but I don't know, in mobility. And if you're a computer vision engineer in mobility, maybe even more specifically, you are looking at autonomous driving, or you're looking at integrating data from different sensors, or maybe actually you're focusing on the predictive maintenance of a particular form of transport. So this is exactly this domain expertise. You will hold deep domain expertise. This means that you have a certain role or function in engineering or ops or modeling, and you know your data. You know your domain. You have some industry experience. You know perhaps the customer for that, but you particularly also know how this works. And you can show that. So you can demonstrate, a repeated and improved work within that domain with a certain set of methods that actually make you an expert, the go-to person if somebody had a question on computer vision for autonomous mobility. Next up is the portfolio. So this is the idea that on the one hand, you have the breadth of skills. On the second, you have these deep domain expertise. And then in a third kind of way, you have a portfolio. There is some work that you've developed, things you can show. Now, of course, if you're working in a company, much of what you do may well be confidential, protected by IP and three other things, but you can nevertheless describe it. And actually, when your peers examine you, they can, from the description that you provide, that meets whatever requirements you have, ask you the questions to kind of determine whether there is a portfolio, whether there is a substantial portfolio that shows that for a number of years you've contributed to a field or to a company or companies in a particular kind of direction that actually makes you a leader, that makes you a senior expert, the go-to expert, a leader, somebody that can be trusted and knows what they're doing and can be held accountable to a professional standard. So very much around this accreditation actually is about quality, and with quality comes trust, and with trust actually comes the power to make decisions, the ability to have more resources, the ability to command resources in this sense and make things happen. Now, we've looked at this, and of course the question always is, so on the one hand, why are we doing this? So what's the problem to which this is a solution? I spoke about this earlier, but then also, why are we doing this? What's the benefit? So what's the outcome? What's in it for the professionals or the companies that are investing in this? So benefits for professionals. I think it's relatively important to see that this is about your standing and the peer recognition. So in the first instance, it's being recognized as being an expert, as being a leader, as having contributed to a professional field. But with it, of course, also comes the ability then to network with other people of equal standing. And this then also, of course, really tangibly translates into higher income or more responsibility or promotion or whatever you can think of. So accreditation, in the sense that businesses and regulators really need leaders they trust, actually means that you are ready to step up, that you can be trusted with those responsibilities. And this should if this is for you, should have the so to speak, the tangible benefits in terms of more resources, higher income, and whatever else you can imagine down the line. That was one slide too many, I apologize. So, and then there are also, of course, benefits for business that we see here. So one is through the accreditation, we're kind of like creating a public register of people that can be trusted. Then companies should have better products. They should really have better products because there are quality standards that people are adhering to. Also in terms of, not part of today's talk, but in terms of, for example, advancing AI adoption and having more business impact. So, you can build better products if you know for whom you're building them, and you have an appreciation, leaders have an appreciation of who the customer and user is, and therefore can ensure that there's business value. that should mean there's a bottom line impact for companies. So if there's a bottom line impact and they're making money or saving money, there's a clear motivation to invest more into the adoption of data and machine learning. Then with accredited leaders, it should also be possible to scale teams better. So on the one hand, it's a check that these people can actually lead teams. And then the next thing is that the accreditation is a clear signal to other practitioners that they're getting somebody who knows what they're doing, is also responsible, and has some sort of understanding of the importance of ethics also in the workplace, part of the accreditation. So that should help in that direction. And really make the recruiting easier. So business should have really on the business and the people side clear, measurable benefits that improve their situation. And then there's a benefit for the wider public. I spoke about this initially as a problem with risk apprehension and a certain kind of adversity to the usage of data and machine learning in industry, or its increasing usage. So the accreditation we provide is absolutely transparent. You can check all our criteria. Just like a public record. What we think explainable and rigorous. So if we were to get challenged, we could show exactly how it works. The assessment process is rigorous and independent. People can pass the accreditation or they can fail it. Again, the criteria are visible. They're also visible to the wider public and can be checked. And we also like to think that it's absolutely fair, and we ensure the fairness by also asking independent observers to review the process and the outcome of whatever happens in the accreditation. So it's 22 past the hour, and I've been talking about the highest standard. So this is this project of accreditation by the AEI Guild that you can do if you have at least 4 years of professional experience and you have the breadth of technical skills and you also have a particular domain that you're interested in. If this is for you, you can get in touch with the AEI Guild. You can get in touch with us. We will actually provide informal conversations and some advice to kind of check principal eligibility and whether it's meaningful for you and makes sense and so on and so on. So you can talk to us before you submit. Actually, you should talk to us before you submit. And then if it's a meaningful thing, you can submit, and then you're part of an independent process that will verify your experience and competence and award you the accreditation if you are performing to the highest standard in the profession, and should be among those that businesses and regulators trust. Now, if there are any questions or you would like to ask any questions, you're following on LinkedIn or YouTube, for example, now is the exact moment to add a comment or hit the chat and pass on that question. Okay, I don't see a question coming in for today. So I would like to thank all of you that have been following this, and would like to say that we're back live on Friday with something around data analytics, and also we'll be back next Wednesday. So the AEI Guild at the moment is working out how to regularly be available for you, pass on information, show examples, be able to answer your questions, and so on. So if you're not following the AEI Guild on LinkedIn, please do so, so you'll always be notified about upcoming live events. Thank you, and have a day.